The day I realized my family had already written me out of their story, I was standing in my kitchen holding a sympathy card that still smelled like lilies. The kind from the funeral home. The kind you never think you'll need. My husband Tom had been gone for 9 days. My daughter Lily had been gone 9 days. And my mother was on the phone asking if I could move some money around before the end of the month. I remember staring at the fridge while she talked. There was still one of Lily's crayon drawings taped to it. 3 purple stick figures holding hands under a yellow square sun. She'd labeled it Us in wobbly letters. I kept looking at it like if I focused hard enough, I could step back into that picture. "Danielle," my mom said, her voice clipped and impatient. "Nathan is in a tight spot. You know how business is. Family helps family. Family helps family." It's funny how a sentence can mean one thing your whole life, until it doesn't. If you're new here, this is her untold revenge. I tell the stories we don't always say out loud. The quiet ones. The ones that don't need screaming to be powerful. If you've ever been the dependable one, the strong one, the one everyone leans on while you're leans in, pull up a chair. This one's for you. I'm Danielle Carver. I was 36 when my world split clean in half. Tom and Lily died in a pileup on a rain-slick highway just outside town. A semi-jackknifed. Wrong place, wrong second. I won't describe it. I don't need to. The silence afterward was loud enough. What I will tell you is this. At the funeral, the front row was empty. My parents were in Napa Valley. Wine tour. Non-refundable, my mom said when I called to tell her the service date. Nathan and his wife Mallory had gone with them. Apparently it had been planned forever. Mallory texted the family group chat that it would be emotionally healthier to remember. Lily in joy, not in tragedy. I read that twice. Emotionally healthier. I stood at my daughter's grave while strangers from Tom's work held umbrellas over me. My uncle Ernest drove in from Missouri and didn't leave my side. Lily's second-grade teacher sobbed into a tissue. My parents posted vineyard selfies with little grape emojis. And then 9 days later, my mom called about money. Here's the part they conveniently forgot. 3 years earlier, when I started my event planning business, I was short on startup funds. My parents had given me $25,000. At Christmas, in front of everyone. A gift for our girl, my dad had said, beaming like he'd funded a scholarship. The bank required a signed letter confirming it was a gift, not a loan. I remember sliding that paper across their dining table. My mom barely glanced at it before signing. "Of course it's a gift," she laughed. "What kind of parents charge interest?" Apparently the kind who change the story when it suits them. After Tom and Lily died, I couldn't even open my planner without shaking. My business stalled. I canceled weddings, refunded deposits. Brides were kind, mostly. Some sent flowers. Some sent long texts I couldn't read without crying. But I still had savings. Life insurance. Careful investments Tom and I had made for Lily's future. Money that felt radioactive now. Nathan's construction company was apparently bleeding. That's the word my mom used. Bleeding. Like my brother's. Profit margins were somehow more urgent than the graves I was visiting every Sunday. "You're alone now," Nathan told me when he finally called himself. "You don't have college tuition to think about. It just makes sense. It just makes sense." I actually laughed. It came out sharp and strange, like it belonged to someone else. "You're talking about my daughter like she was a line item," I said. He sighed, like I was being dramatic. Mallory followed up with a text. Of course she did. A whole paragraph about shared family resources and how resentment blocks abundance. I wish I were joking. For 2 nights, I sat at my dining table with my laptop open to my bank account. I could transfer the money. It would hurt, but I could. And the calls would stop. The pressure would stop. I was so tired of conflict. So tired of being the difficult one whenever I said no. Ernest showed up unannounced on the 3rd night. He brought Chinese takeout and didn't ask permission to come in. He saw the transfer screen. "You gonna pay them to feel better about what they did?" he asked quietly. I stared at the cursor blinking over the amount field. $25,000. The exact number. "They say it wasn't a gift," I whispered. "They say it was an investment." Ernest sat across from me and folded his hands. "Then they should have written that." That's when I remembered the letter. It took me half an hour to find it. File cabinet, manila folder, labeled LOANDUES 2023. There it was. Their signatures, clear as day. No repayment expected. This is an unconditional gift. I sat back in my chair and felt something shift inside me. Not anger, not even relief. Clarity. They weren't confused. They were rewriting history because they thought I was too broken to challenge it. A week later, Renee, my cousin, bless her, called me whispering like we were in high school again. My parents were planning a big anniversary dinner. 40 guests. They were going to address the misunderstanding publicly. Frame it as me refusing to help during Nathan's crisis. A public ambush. Old me would have skipped it. Blocked numbers. Cried at home. But grief does something strange. It burns off the extra layers. I didn't have energy for fear anymore. I went. The restaurant was one of those overly fancy places with cloth napkins and waiters who speak in hushed tones. My mom wore navy silk. Nathan looked exhausted. Mallory looked smug. Halfway through dessert, my dad stood and tapped his glass. Speech time, he talked about loyalty, about sacrifice, about how painful it is when your own child forgets what you've done for her. Then he said, clear as crystal, we gave Danielle $25,000 when she was starting out, and now she refuses to help her own brother. There it was. 40 faces turned to me. My hands didn't shake. That surprised me. I stood slowly and pulled the folded paper from my clutch. I walked to the head of the table and laid it beside the anniversary cake. You did give me $25,000, I said. As a gift. I let the words sit there. You signed this letter for my bank, stating it was not a loan. No repayment expected. I watched the color drain from my mother's face. And you asked me for that money 9 days after I buried my husband and my daughter. While you were on a wine tour, you could hear the air conditioning. Nathan started talking over me. Something about timing, about stress. But I held up my hand. I would have considered helping if you'd asked like family, I said. But you didn't. You demanded repayment for a gift. And you skipped my child's funeral. Mallory muttered something about dwelling in negativity. Renee stood up from the far end of the table and said, clear and steady. They were in Napa. I saw the photos. No yelling, no drama, just facts. My dad sank back into his chair, and in that moment, I realized something huge. I didn't need them to admit they were wrong. I just needed the truth in the room. I left before coffee was served. Nathan's company filed for bankruptcy 3 months later. I didn't gloat. I didn't celebrate. I just kept building my own life, brick by quiet brick. I rebranded my business that spring, Carver & Co. Underneath the logo, in small script, I added a tagline, for the moments that matter, because they do. They matter. I moved Lily's drawing from the fridge into a frame in my office. I talk to Tom when I'm driving alone at night. I still cry sometimes in the cereal aisle. Grief doesn't disappear. It just becomes part of your weather. I don't speak to my parents now, not with anger, just absence. And the quiet that replaced them is softer than the noise ever was. Family helps family, my mother said. Here's what I've learned. Real family shows up without calculating the return. If someone in your life is trying to rewrite what you know is true, hold on to your paperwork. Hold on to your memory. Hold on to your spine. And if this story felt a little too familiar, you're not crazy. You're not bitter. You're waking up. Subscribe to Her Untold Revenge for more stories like this. Stories about women who choose quiet strength over chaos. And share this with someone who needs the reminder that a gift is not a debt, grief is not weakness, and walking away can be the bravest thing you ever do. I'll see you in the next one.